Hi, Andrea. Welcome back to the Huddle.
Hi, Tim. It's good to be back. Been a while.
Yeah. Yeah, been a while, but repeat guest. Pleasure to have you back on. You were also recently on the cover and in our CEO special of Gambling Insider
Oh,
magazine.
yep.
Before we get into kind of, payments and Neosurf, just wanted to ask, wanted you to reflect on what it was like taking part in that feature.
Actually, the interview was fun and nice. Then you read what it is that you said because you have no editorial rights, so you guys write what you're going to do. And my team read it, and they could hear giggles around of different things about music and things like therapy. But the serious stuff was good. And then I go to ICE, and there's magazines everywhere, and people are laughing, going, "Is that really you?" Because of course you create these artistic drawings of us on the front. I want nails like you've painted on there. That's the first thing I said. I want hands like that. I don't have hands like that. The process was fun. It's always unnerving because if you're not used to that sort of thing. But I did find it refreshing. It was different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think readers would have found kind of the idea is the person behind the exec as well, a more rounded story. So hopefully the readers found it refreshing too. And obviously, you talked a bit about kind of outside of the business kind of musical interests. You've been to an impressive number of gigs of people like I can't even for example Queen, like I can't watch Queen, but you've been there,
A long time ago. Very long when they're still doing not stadiums, but doing theatres. I'm old, Tim. I was there. It was if anybody was listening to it, it was a crazy little thing called Love Tour. That's what it was. Back in the late 70s, my friend. But there you go.
Well, okay, so let's talk business then. And a topic you're going to be comfortable talking about. Neosurf asks us to imagine a payments company that does things differently. That's the line. But I want to put you on the spot and say, in 5 years, what does that actually mean? What are you really trying to achieve when you say that?
Well, I have a major passion in things like responsible gaming and to do with all of the different chaotic regulations that exist where payments meet the gambling industry. And imagine a payments company doing something different is us taking responsibility and accountability. And in 5 years' time, my dream would be others come with us. So we've already started that path. We've got some products and services and merchants and operators that we work with where we're doing it. But in 5 years, I'd like to think that nobody needs to imagine it because we are inbuilt in it. I get very frustrated with some of the biggest names in the payment sector who have openly had conversations, and I'm not judging them, but I get frustrated. It's, oh, well, that's not our job, that's the operator's job. And then I'll challenge people and say, but aren't you serving this industry and therefore part of the overall ecosystem team? And they'll often say, oh, yeah, we're here to support the operator. So why won't you support them if you take the UK, affordability, all our data goes in. No, do more. Fraud support, well, we give them information, but it's their job. No, it's do more. So imagining a payments company doing something differently is us taking our responsibility and our accountability. In the US, which is literally days away from our launch at long last, there's a whole load of insights of where we take our responsibility on what they call responsible gaming, but I'm really pleased to hear it being called safer gambling and more aware gambling and all these different phrases, sort of more consumer friendly. But there's a whole host of information that we can be helping the player, that helps the operator, that helps the ecosystem and sustainability. And I will not leave my pedestal shouting out to the payments companies until we've got more in. And I will shout out Trustly, because Trustly are actually coming along that path as well. I love being on panels with the guys from there because they talk the same language, which is great. But they're quite narrow. We're quite narrow in what we deliver. We need the big guys, but 5 years, you never know. You might have a card scheme do it. There's a challenge to the card schemes. They feel they're mountains away from the element. But that is 5 years. That's what it means. And it is it's a direction for us that we are not just ticking a box, we're taking actions. But in 5 years, the Imagine, I hope, becomes a reality.
Crossley, of course, a recent guest on the Huddle as well. They came over ICE. And I think that concept is of kind of whose responsibility is it, finding the line. That's actually something we're exploring in the next magazine, not specifically to do with payments, but obviously it all intersects. And, you know, operators, the player themselves, regulators, and then, as you say, various members within the ecosystem.
I applaud you for doing that. Because you're right, it's not just payments. I'm saying it because I am in payments, but I applaud you for taking that approach. The more of us that keep doing it, the more we can start to all be working collaboratively and sustainable element to the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sustainability is always going to drive kind of long-term kind of even customer lifetime value and that kind of thing. But of course, moral grounds, responsible, not just looking at the numbers. If we are to look at some numbers, potentially, we've spoken about cash a lot, and whenever you've been here, you've said that cash is still essential, and I see it all the time. I mean, I used cash at lunch today, even though I use my card most of the time, but it's not like cash doesn't exist. Would you say, since we've last spoken, do you think people are actually almost a bit of a comeback in cash, that people are using it more than, you know, a few years ago, and it's not going away?
Well, there's more cash in circulation, but there are different theories behind that. We've recently done a major research and did a webinar for the US to see the kind of stats that are there and the amount of people who would see cash as important. Sometimes the cash transactions are hidden because they go into prepaid cards and people don't recognize them in the transactions, that's what it was. But it's, you know, we're seeing stats of anything from 22 to 36%. And the things that I like to quote are industry stats, not just for gambling. In Europe, 57% of retail shop purchases remain cash. Part of that is distrust of the system. We all saw the big downtime from a Microsoft bug that they fixed very quickly. The amount of people that went back in to say, oh, hold on a minute, there's no money left in the ATM. I walked into my local supermarket and they went, unless you've got cash, we can't help you. So cash isn't dead, and cash would never be actually dead. Don't get me wrong, we are bridging the cash into the digital space. That's what our focus is, and doing that in a safe and traceable manner. But the myth that it is dead is inappropriate. The concept of taking cash and enabling cash for whatever reason the player requires it. Could be control. It could be, I don't want my bank to see it. It could be, I don't get banking, depending on where you are. Or when I say I don't get easy banking, I don't get cheap banking. I mean, here in the UK, our personal bank accounts are free. It's easy. You've got a debit card. Now it's on Apple Pay. That whole thing is, why do I need cash? And then suddenly something goes down on a Sunday afternoon. And now I was, because people know I work in the payments industry, I was actually at a Lido. We were swimming, and my friends were coming over to, you know, payments. What do I do now? To get to an ATM and get your cash out if you can. Otherwise, live with it. Always have some cash in the house. But it was an interesting piece that people suddenly went, what do I do when the digital stops? That's not the reason that people use cash for us. There is control, safety, security. And it's not, we're not just cash. It's still the vast majority of what we deliver. Traceable ability to get a cash into the digital system. Many of the governments like that, because that starts delivering tax information. But we do add other payment methods into our account that people can deposit with. But the most important thing is it's there. Let's do it safely. Let's give the service to the customer that wants it. We can see that some customers use it, if every 5 transactions, they use it 2 or 3 times, and the other 2 or 3 times, they're using their bank or card. So they mix it up. And I don't think people understand the place, which is why the research that we put out, I'm not going to bloat with that because it's a different publication, but the concept of it is still out there. And in America, I mean, I've always said it costs you $1 to breathe in New York is a phrase that used to be given to me. Cash is still out there. It's how you get it in and how do you do it quickly, cost effectively, and mitigate all the risks with it.
So you mentioned, again, responsibility and kind of safer aspect of it. Compliance is huge at the moment. I'm finding the more and more we talk about compliance in huddles, the more and more there is to say, and something that in theory should be quite boring is actually is the opposite. It's fascinating, and there's more and more you can say. And compliance panels at industry talk shows, they're the most popular ones because everyone wants to know how to comply.
Yep.
I'm almost going off on a tangent here of my own, but when it comes to compliance, Neosurf and your compliance Handshake, it's a great name. It paints a picture. Can you tell us a bit more about what this actually specifically provides?
I mean, I'll tell you the history very quickly. Is that we had a meeting with the MLRO, Money Laundering Reporting Officer, of one of our biggest operators, that we didn't understand why the volume used to be at a certain, and then it would go, and then it would come back, and there seemed to be a pattern of somebody was adjusting it. He went to me. He said, "Oh yeah, I go in each week, and I choose you and your competitors how much I think you can have, based on what? My risk appetite." So, okay. And I talked about something that we'd always had, which is called the KYC handshake. And the KYC handshake has two parts to it. The first part is enabling the traceability of the person who's bought the voucher to be matched with the person you've got. So I might be Andrew at Neosurf, but I've also got Andrew at Gmail. But the address is the same, the IP address is the same, the device is the same, and you handshake that and it goes, "Oh yeah, I accept that, that's the same person." But he then went in, I didn't even know we had that. And then he gave us a shopping list of what he thought he would love to get from a company like ours. And we said, well, we can do this. We can do a KYC handshake from you for payouts. We can give you this insight data. We can give you monitoring. We can give you affordability data with our partnership with Do Trust in the UK. And he went through this list of things. And I'm not allowed to name him, but I have to say that without him, we wouldn't have created this thing that's called the compliance handshake. And it's a bundle of services that started with just a tech API call of, is it Andrea or isn't it, who's doing this transaction with a cash voucher, to really supporting the operator with data that counts, be it affordability in the UK, be it the information that somebody needs to know about if they've put a self-limit on it, if this person is spending in various areas without giving personal data away. You can start to give aggregate data away and start to look at patterns. And then every time somebody says, well, would you look into this bit? And they've got a direct link into our decision science and the data team in there who will do an analysis for them and support them. And that's what the compliance handshake is. I imagine a payments company that's going to be different. Getting in there and supporting the operator is what that's about. And we call it a handshake because it's sharing of data appropriately. There's a whole load of stuff around that. I mean, we don't take user data when we do a transaction. We just confirm the transaction because we've got IDs, serial IDs, etc. But being able to work with the compliance departments supports our one-to-one relationships with the payment teams. And they're thankful for it because they've got to get the compliance team on board to take a payment method. So the compliance handshake is the name, but it's essentially data sharing, and in a very smart way and an efficient way. And some of it is bespoke. Some of our operators take bespoke reports on a daily basis and use it in their own AI.
Mm-hmm. In terms of feedback, I don't know if there's anything that you can't share or anything that's confidential or whatever, but in terms of what operators or people in the industry have been saying, what have you been kind of hearing about the compliance handshake so far?
The most wonderful comment is a person in America, very big operator, who essentially said the deposit starts from the payment company. And so being able to share this data is fundamental. There's another operator out there in the States who went to Game Changer. Thank you very much. Please do it. Then we've got the people we're actually doing it with. And that particular MLRO has advanced beyond and helping us strategically, that the payments person can now switch on payouts with us, which was a no-brainer, really. When we can get through to the right people and make them understand, that's worthwhile. Getting a compliance team to want to talk to us when there's nothing going wrong. So the ones, everything's fine, and trying to talk to them, I haven't got time for that. But the payments colleagues that we have in the industry really work smart with us. But I haven't had anybody that says, oh my God, mainly because you don't have to integrate anything new. The integration's already in your API, and everything else is something we pass over to them. So if it was something that said, hey, you've got to do a new integration, the payment colleagues in the industry would go, thank you, bye-bye. So that was important to us, to make sure that you don't have to do any more integration. It's already there. So we're getting really good feedback. We're starting to really use that information. And it's making, I can't give figures, as you say, but there are some deals that my sales team were trying to get over the line that are now rapidly moving. And they were really struggling to get it over the line. And when you talk to the head of the payments or the payments director or whatever line it is, they look at you and go, I can't get this past our compliance team. It's too heavy, too high risk. And then you talk about how to mitigate the risk, and they go, oh, would you meet with them? I said, yeah, put my head of risk in front of your head of risk, and let's see what comes out. And that's where it works. It really does.
So you talked earlier about, building kind of sustainability, building kind of long-term value, and the compliance handshake certainly sounds like it's one way of doing that. But beyond, I guess, just processing transactions, because obviously, as a payments company that does things differently, that's that you want to be more than just that. What do you do? How are you looking to build that long-term value and the partnerships with operators?
So because we're already a few days or maybe a week or two away from launching in a couple of territories, we're going live in Mexico and then America, literally imminently. It's looking at demos and just checking it works, or where are we going. There are specific areas that we can see about a focus with their players and actually be a supportive service to that player and what it is that the relationship they've got with that operator, and match that relationship and look after them and share the data with them, giving you a profit and loss, a P&L of your relationship with the industry, maybe giving information of where you're spending. It's like I have a Monzo card here in the UK, and originally when it used to send me, oh, you're over your budget, and I went, to hell with you, I've still got money in there. And then I'd look at it, oh yeah, too much, excuse my language, sorry. I might spend too much money in I spend too much money at Mint Velvet. It's a clothes shop, mostly women's clothes. And I realized, and I'm like, ooh, that is a lot. Reality of information, but matching a relationship that the operator wants. I'm not talking about the bet, the wager. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that relationship with what they're doing generically. And have that relationship that is not judgmental, it's supportive, it's educational. That is something that is a serious extra level to go to. And I say that's part of us being in the ecosystem. And we're not MasterCard, we're not Nuvei, we're not these big companies, we're not the card schemes, but we have enough players, and we have players who like our accounts and they understand when they're using it, how that's about. In the games industry, we launched Digital Cash, which is a dedicated account for their value in gamers' language, and we learned so much doing that, because you suddenly realize that not one size fits all at all. You can't have a digital cash and not have it talking gamers' language. Not that I understand gamers' language. There's a few words that I know, but it's different. So it's about that relationship with the player respecting that that player is interacting with this operator, and having that. I hate the word AI, but there is an element of bringing in the information to be right for you, the player. So taking it a little bit further on. Yeah, the transactions, they're easy. They're boring. I mean, things can go wrong, of course, and my tech team would be shouting at me when they listen to that. But the concept of being able to get that loyalty and continual ability to use our service at the operator and enjoy that experience and know what they're seeing is the next step, and people will see that this year. They'll see what we're bringing out.
When it comes to the gamer talk, I mean, I know you will have learned a few phrases because obviously Neosurf has partnered with kind of esports organizations and teams like that. Yeah. But I suppose the natural follow-up that I kind of just thought of is, if an operator, so you're there, you're offering that kind of extra layer of support. But if the operator, it's there, but if they're okay with you taking more of a backseat, that's not a problem either, is it? Because you're offering the data, but you're not going to impose.
Yeah. It's not mandatory. It's if you want it. Naturally, we want to talk to the right operators where we could have an understanding of why they would use it, because otherwise what happens is you get the myths. 2 years ago, we were talking about the myth that cash is dead. And yeah, that was a hard slog with some of the bots, not with the payments guys. But no, if somebody didn't want it, they don't have to use it. It's up to them.
Yeah. I mean, on the cash note, that's why I brought it up earlier. I remember 2-3 years ago, a real drive for cashless. It's still obviously, the cashless gaming, specifically gaming, is increasing, but I think there's a lot less talk of, it's all we're going to do, because some segments, some demographics have just stuck to cash, and like we said earlier.
And yeah, the cash is still going in the cage and out of the cage of the land-based places, but the art really is making it as swift, simple, safe, traceable, and take all the risks out of it, so that the player can do what they want to do, the operator can take something safely, meet the regulatory requirements, and if we do our job well, which is what our passion is, then we can bridge that gap. I say it's in some countries it's about 46% of our in sectors, 46% of our business. In others, it's over 60.
Mm-hmm. Let's look ahead. A final kind of topic to look to the future, and we've covered a few different areas, but far from all of them. There's so much still involved in the kind of payments, gaming ecosystems, and everything that kind of intersect. Yeah. But if we're looking at online payments, what companies can do, and what you said earlier about everyone kind of pulling together, how much work is there still left to be done? And I imagine there's lots.
There are people in the gambling industry who I adore and love. And if they're in this room right now, there's one particular gentleman who would be, I can hear him giggling now. There's too much to be done, considering we're here in 2025. But we haven't given up, we keep going. Technology, AI, the ability with machine learning and what you've got should be there to say that we can bring something that's really smart and manage the risk, fight off the fraudsters who are highly intelligent, too intelligent for our own good. But the concept of where we could be is that collaboration. I think the next step for us, and we're only a small player in context, but we're a very important player, is try to get these payment companies together and be on the same page. There was a responsible gambling coalition group, and now that's in the American Gambling Association. They've got this working in the US. So getting together with these kind of people and finding out what they think, and having, you might only do it twice a year or 4 times a year, but gaining that information together and stop thinking that what we're doing is stealing each other's ideas, because that's go off and do what you've got to do for your own growth. But you've got to be able to work together. Governments work together. Well, chosen a bad year to say that, but in fact, that is so wrong, isn't it, at the moment, considering what's going on? And this is time stamping this conversation. But I used to work in the oil industry, and we weren't allowed to fix pricing. That was illegal, and that's fair enough. But working together and understanding the differences that are going on was an open conversation between the main brands. And I think opening your eyes to working together is a better thing. It's why when I'm on a panel, and I'm on a panel with Trustly, I love it, because there's this conversation. We'll challenge each other, but we're also of the same ilk. And that's I had a panel at SBC that we delayed the start of until our Trustly mate got in. I said, I was moderating. I said, I'm not starting until he's here. He's on his way. We delayed it so he could be there, because it's all very important to have this collaboration of thought. We've got our own passion. We've got our own imagination of what we want to do. But we want to, I told you, at 5 years' time, but the more I can get more people to think like we are, we're not asking to give trade secrets away. I'm not telling you what my profit is. I'm not telling you necessarily what my transactional volume is, but I do want to share what I can. And the more you do that, the better the industry, right? If you do that with the operators, even better. I do go on about it, Tim, but I'm not going to stop. It is this soapbox of let's be there and deliver that. And in the meantime, we're delivering it. And I've got operators who are sitting there going, yes, please, let's do that. Then we'll together prove it. This is what, and they'll start to demand it, by the way. So that's what's going to be really important.
Well, Andrea, thanks as always for your time. I'm sure we'll be speaking again soon. But good luck, best of luck with everything in kind of US and Mexico and everywhere else as well. But obviously these are big markets for you guys.
There's a lot coming this year, yeah. It's really good to see you, Tim. I haven't seen you for a while, so that's really good to see you. Thank you ever so much, man. Have a good weekend. All right, take care.
Likewise.
All right,
You too.
Take care.